Good evening and thank you for tuning in. This is Democracy Under Threat. I am Vanelda Harris, and this evening with me I have our Prime Minister-elect in waiting, Brigadier retired Mark Phillips. Welcome to the program. And the first question I want to ask you is, what is the PPP's position on shared governance? Because it's been over a month now since we've had the general and regional elections held, and up to now, the people are still waiting for elections results to be declared. And I'm sure it's very frustrating. We've seen all over social media, people are frustrated with waiting, and GCOM seems to be stalling all the time. We've not been getting much progress since the holding of the elections, and the people are there waiting for their government to go in. And now we have this global pandemic of the coronavirus that's going on, and it's critical that we have a government in there to deal with these issues. But Guyana is at the point where we have persons who are trying to hold on to power and suppress the will of the people. And we've heard APNU calling for shared governance. So what is the PPP's position on shared governance?
Thank you, Vanelda, and thank you for inviting me to the program, Democracy Under Threat. Democracy is indeed under threat, and if I should deal with the first question, what is the PPP's position, PPP's civic position on shared governance? The PPP's civic position on shared governance is we are not interested in discussing any aspect of shared governance at this point in time. That is our position. Our position, therefore, is the completion of the democratic process. As you know, we had elections on the 2nd of March, and to date, over 40 days after that elections, we are still to have the results of that elections. You know the history, you know what happened. A couple of days after the 2nd of March, we had results for 9 regions. And region 4, we had the statement of polls that were verified, 421 statement of polls verified, and there are 458 statements of poll that were not verified. There was an attempt to rig the elections, and I'm saying it as I see it. Senior people within GCOM attempted to rig the elections.
Now we're seeing, now we're at the stage where we're headed for a recount, which we took a very long time because we had matters in the court and all sorts of delay tactics by APNU and their candidate filing a court case to have an injunction against CARICOM being able to supervise the recount and GCOM being able to actually get that recount on the way. And so now we're at the stage where court matters are cleared. The Court of Appeal basically threw out that case, and we're waiting for GCOM to give us the next step forward. I think at the meeting today, the update that we received is that, we know that the Chief Elections Officer was supposed to submit his plan, his revised plan, after the discussions that he had in the past week for the conduct of the recount. And he did not, the Secretariat did not produce that plan today. And so we're still waiting. We believe that there are constant delay tactics, and as one of the international bodies said, I believe that is the Commonwealth, they said that there are forces that are trying to basically commit electoral fraud. And we're not going to just sit down and let this go by, because the people's will must be achieved. The people's will must be represented. Their government that they rightly elected to be in there to represent them should be in there. And so back to GCOM and their plan. Now, we heard a ridiculous plan that was produced for 156 days for the recount to be done. That's over 5 months. 5 months in addition to all this time that we had now, and we are aware of what happened in 2015. In 2015, we didn't have problems with SOPs. We didn't have problems with ACNU asking for recounts and all of these things, but all of a sudden, we have all sorts of technicalities and issues being raised over and over again to delay the people's will from being put out there, from having the people's government, rightfully elected government put in place to deal with issues. And you know that we have had our commissioners at GCOM put their plan, and our plan and our position with the recount is that 10 days, in 10 days, this recount can be done, as opposed to 156 days.
Okay, you raise a number of issues there, Vanelda. And if I should come in, 156 days is an absurdity. GCOM Secretariat is supposed to be ready for an elections in 90 days. In other words, whenever election is called, they must be able to develop deliver that elections in 90 days. That is the whole modus operandi of GCOM. They're designed to deliver an election within 90 days. 90 days. And now they're telling us they're going to recount less than 500,000 votes. And they need 156 days. Our position is that, as I mentioned before, we can count all the votes in the ballots in 10 days for all 10 administrative regions of Guyana. 156 days is too long. And I hope that before the end of the week, the commissioners under the chairperson and with the reworking of the 156-day schedule by the Chief Executive Officer of GCOM, we will come down to a far lesser period for this recount than 156 days. If you can go back to 2015, there are a lot of videos out there where the current President Granger, is on record as saying that they have the information after the elections and GCOM was taking too long to verify the statement of polls. He was saying that they had the statement of polls and the statement of polls showed clearly that they won the elections. And GCOM was taking too long to verify the elections in 2015. This is 2020. And I wish to tell every Guyanese that we have the statement of polls, and the statement of polls from the 2020, March 2nd, the 2020 election showed clearly that the PPPC won that elections by over 17,000 votes. And you know what is bad? The coalition has copies of the same statement of polls. And the coalition would have done exactly what we did. We didn't just sit down with the copies of the statement of polls. We collected the copies of the statement of polls on the evening of the 2nd of March after they would have been counted. We collected our copies and we tabulated our copies. And by midday, on Tuesday, the 3rd of March, we knew that we won this election. And again, what is bad is that the coalition would have done the same tabulation, and sometime on Tuesday, they would have known that the PPPC won the elections.
And that is it's very obvious to Guyanese by now that indeed the PPPC did win the 2020 elections, and not just win it, but win it by a landslide victory. And it's just blatant rigging that the APNU and GCOM have been trying to do since March 2nd, after they realized on Tuesday, I'm sure, because I don't think they took that long to tabulate. If we knew by midday Tuesday that we had won the elections by a landslide. We know for a fact that APNU knew that they had lost the elections
exactly
by a big gap, a huge gap, and they just started to figure out ways and means to commit electoral fraud so that they can hang on to power and suppress the will of the people. But the PPPC is not going to allow that to happen. We have made it clear that we're going to do everything that we have to do, everything that is possible to ensure that the people's will is
respected.
Yes, respected, and the rightful government is put in place and can assume office so that we can get on with the business of our country, get on with serving the people of Guyana. And then you have APNU claiming to care about people. How can you care about people when, for example, you have this COVID-19 pandemic that's going on? We don't have funding. We haven't been able to achieve or acquire any funding from the international
community
organizations, and right now Guyana is just in a bad position where we're on the verge of being sanctioned and not being recognized by the global community. So for leaders who claim to care about your interests, have your best interests at heart, and just blatantly want to punish you and see our country suffer, but just because they want to hang on to power and commit electoral fraud in front of the entire world, then that is not a caring government. That is not a government that I would want to serve me. And I'm sure that many Guyanese by now, I've heard of so many persons who actually voted for them this time around and have been asking back, but of course have been saying, is it possible for us to get our eggs back? Because it's very disgraceful, it's embarrassing, and it's shameful to know that these are the people who want to lead our country.
Exactly. There's some serious consequences for any government, any president and any government that is sworn in under these conditions of a fraudulent election. Indeed, the international community has already voiced their concern, and they have indicated in simple and clear language that all they're interested in is the credible, fair, and transparent recount of the votes. That is the position of the international community right now, because the international community is interested in a democratically elected government in Guyana. A government that can take their seat at the table, whether it be at CARICOM, whether it be at the OAS, whether it be at the United Nations. Not a government, not a president who is sworn in based on a fraudulent election, and therefore there's a lot of suspicion about the whole electoral process in Guyana. The people voted, and the will of the people must be respected. There are consequences for individuals who are members of the government. There are consequences for people who are doing business. Guyanese businessmen who have to do business with international companies external to Guyana. There are consequences for our security forces. They will be taking orders from an illegal government, a government that has no legitimacy. Then you have the issue of security cooperation between the security forces of Guyana, that is the police force and the Guyana Defense Force. They have relationships security cooperation relationships with many countries in our hemisphere, bordering countries, CARICOM, United States, Canada, and even outside of our hemisphere with, for example, the United Kingdom. Those security cooperation agreements will now come into question if we are to operate with a government that is not properly elected. So there's a lot of consequences for every strata of government and every Guyanese, so to speak, if we have a government that is not legal. And I think, if I should recall, one of the campaign slogans for the coalition was honest and decent leadership, honesty and decency and stability. And I would like to say that if indeed the leadership of the coalition is honest and decent, by now they should have conceded that they have lost this election and allow the rightful winners of the election to take the seat of government. I accept the fact that we have a recount, and it is my hope that this recount can start as early as possible. As I said before, 40 days and counting, and we cannot have a result as yet of this election. My only hope is that we could have this recount started perhaps in a week time, and in 10 days get it over and done. And as the people on the road will say, who will win? Let us do the recount, let us be transparent, and to use Mr. Granger's word, credible, right? Fair, with the international observers, with the GCOM people there, and with the scrutineers from all parties, right? Let us have a transparent, credible recount of our votes, and whosoever win. The Guyanese people, I know, they're waiting, and once the recount is properly done, and hopefully at the earliest possible time, the Guyanese people, and this includes the supporters of the coalition. I have spoken to many Guyanese people out there, and they are ready to accept the results of the recount of all 10 regions. The PPP, is interested not in a recount of Region 4 only, but just like the coalition, we are interested in a recount of all 10 administrative regions. So there's a lot of propaganda out there. I saw some Facebook pages, even a page from the First Lady, Madam Sandra Granger, that is calling for a recount of all 10 regions, and every vote must count. We are calling for a recount of all 10 regions too, and it is our interest that every vote must count. But it must not be done in 156 days. We can do this recount in 10 days. And GCOM Secretariat must now present to the commissioners and to the chair a revised timeline that is not 156 days, but closer, if not to 10 days that we're proposing, closer to the 10 days. Because we've said, and we know because our people did this staff work, so to speak, and it can be done in 10 days. So that Guyana can have a government, the people's will respected, and we have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, using the words of the late United States President Abraham Lincoln. Yes,
definitely. But what is hilarious too is the fact that if APNU really believes that they won these elections, there is absolutely no way that APNU would want to wait 156 days to assume office. Any right-thinking person would know that it's obvious that the APNU would have lost the elections, and whatever little time extension that they can get to hang on to power in there, that's all that they're doing. It's all just a game, because I cannot say that you know that the people elected you and you want to get in there and get started. As they claim they won the elections, why not get this thing over with?
Exactly.
And assume office? Why, if you won the elections and you're so confident that you won the elections, why wait 156 days plus? Because we're already over a month, so you have to add this to 156 days. Half a year, 6 months after having the general and regional elections held for Guyana and the people elected you. There have got to be a bunch of mentally deranged people in there to want to assume office 6 months after being elected rightfully by the Guyanese people. And we know that Guyanese people are not stupid. It is very clear, and we know from our tabulations, and we've already posted our SOPs, we posted our tally sheets to show how we know for a fact that we won the elections. We've heard candidates from the small parties that contested these elections actually saying that based on their tabulation as well, it is clear that the PPPC won the elections by a landslide as well. And so this is not just the PPPC being one-sided and trying to fool Guyanese people and making up all sorts of stuff. We've heard other candidates from the other parties make the same statement.
Certainly. And perhaps I should call upon the leadership of the APNU AFC coalition to do like the PPPC. Upload on social media or wherever you want to do it. Show the Guyanese people, show the public the statement of polls that you have in your possession, just like the PPP did. However, while you're contemplating doing that, I must say that there are good people within that coalition, and it's time that the good people take a stand. Some already did. We want more of the good people to come out and take a stand and not be like the small core group that is trying to hold on to power at all costs. That will not help Guyana. We don't need sanctions for Guyana. What we need is the conclusion of this democratic process in a transparent, credible manner. We are at a stage now where we've committed ourselves to the recount. Let us have the recount as early as possible, and it must be done within the shortest time with a great degree or high degree of transparency, and to use Mr. Granger's word, it must be credible. Now is not the time to talk about power sharing, because if the coalition had really won this election, they would not have been speaking about power sharing
and nowhere in
and shared governance.
Nowhere in their manifesto booklet that they produced said anything about
power sharing.
Yes.
But the PPPC is on record in our manifesto of committing ourselves after free, fair, and credible elections, committing ourselves to restarting the whole process of constitutional reform and electoral reform. We will start those discussions, but we will only start those discussions after the electoral process is concluded. And I said before, we are confident that we won those elections. We are confident that the people of Guyana in majority voted for us, and we would like everybody, including the coalition, to respect the will of the people. If we respect the will of the people and democracy takes root in Guyana, it will be beneficial for all Guyanese, because we can only develop Guyana in an even manner under a democratic elected government. 2015, the coalition was democratically elected. The PPPC conceded and allowed the coalition to govern Guyana. But we insisted on being a vibrant opposition because we believe that governance is not only the elected government, but it also includes a vibrant opposition. And there has been a struggle that every Guyanese is aware of from December 2018 to now to have the democratic process on stream in Guyana. We came to an election after almost a year of struggling through this whole democratic process. We came to an election on the 2nd of March, and this is about time that we have a conclusion of this whole election process and let the rightful, the truthful winner of this election be sworn in and start governing this country. So let us have the recount. Let us do it in the shortest possible time. Let us be transparent, and who win, win.
Yes, and the results that the PPPC has, based on our tabulation, the other parties have it because their agents would have received the same SOPs.
Same SOPs.
GCOM has it because they have SOPs as well in their possession, and so that is the reason why they have a problem producing those SOPs.
Yes, the coalition will not want to produce the SOPs because if they produce the SOPs, the same SOPs that we have, they will be telling the Guyanese people exactly what we are telling the Guyanese people,
yes,
that we won the elections. And I'm saying again that the coalition is fully well aware that we won the elections because they did not collect the SOPs and put them in a box or put them in a file. They went through the same process with the SOPs that we went through. They tabulated the SOPs, and therefore they know since by the latest, by the evening of Tuesday the 3rd of March, that the PPPC won the elections. They knew that.
Mm-hmm. And we have David Hines too. I don't know if you can recall David Hines, who is a part of ACNU, also calling for the elections to be scrapped and an interim government led by Granger to be put in place. Now you won the elections. You're talking about winning these elections, and you're based on your tabulation, you know that you won and the PPPC is lying. But who are really the ones deceiving the people? Now you want to scrap an elections that you won? Really? And that's why I say that these people have got to be mentally deranged, because I cannot say I went up against so many other political parties. The Guyanese people voted for us to assume office, to represent them. I want to wait half a year to assume office, to start serving the people, continue delaying and delaying and delaying, come up with all sorts of excuses, and then I want to scrap those elections that I really believe I won.
Well, you know, if we're to take on board the recommendations of Mr. Hines, that will be very destructive for Guyana. Mr. Hines is an academic, you know, he writes a lot, I read all his articles, but certainly, this is one time I will state clearly, no, Mr. Hines. We cannot destroy our ballot boxes, because the truth as to who won the elections are in those ballot boxes. We cannot swear in Mr. Granger, because Mr. Granger himself knows that if he's sworn in under these conditions, his government will lack legitimacy. His government will not be respected by the regional and the international community. And we cannot talk about shared governance. You know, no. The issue at hand is completion of the democratic process, completion of the election process, respecting the will of the people. So we're keeping the ballot boxes. In fact, we're assisting the security forces in guarding the ballot boxes. Because the will of the people, the truth as to who would have won those elections are in those ballot boxes. As again, I'm repeating, I'm happy that both the PPPC and the coalition, after numerous court cases, are now fully committed to the recount. Let us have the recount in the shortest possible time. Let it be transparent. Let it be credible, again to use Mr. Granger's word, so the Guyanese people will know who won the elections. The Guyanese people will leave satisfied that their will has been respected, and we could move on and develop this country. This is a beautiful country. This is a rich country. But without democracy, we will not be able to develop this country for the people of Guyana.
And then you kind of want to talk about shared governance, and this is the type of attitude and the type of behavior that you're going to have towards respecting the people who elected a government to represent their best interests.
Let us talk about shared governance. Let us talk about constitutional reform after the conclusion of the electoral process, after the conclusion of the recount, after respecting the will of the people. Only then can we talk about constitutional reform and this whole issue of shared governance. We have to start by respecting the will of the people, then we can discuss anything after that.
And we're asking for Granger to keep his promise that he made in January of this year to the U.S. congressmen, where he promised them that these elections will be free, fair, and credible. And the word credible is the most important word that that he used. That was his promise to the U.S. congressmen. And we've heard over and over again since elections have been held, and we've seen blatant attempts to commit electoral fraud and rig the elections in favor of APNU AFC. We've seen statements coming out of numerous international bodies condemning the actions of GCOM and APNU's agents during the tabulation process, and even condemning that declaration that was made by the RO, the returning officer for Region 4, Mingo. Those declarations, that declaration was, he made 2 declarations, and all of his declarations, fraudulent declarations, correct. And all of the declarations that he made, what is hilarious again, is the fact that all have different numbers. They can't seem to be able to decide on what number they want to put on the fraudulent sheet of paper there that they're trying to tell the people, these here are the results that we have. They cannot.
Exactly. So, to end the program, are we at the end now?
Well, yes, you can wrap up. But one of the most important things I want you to do, Brigadier, is continue to encourage the people, because we know that it is very overwhelming for a lot of persons all across this country. People are overwhelmed. Now we have to go back to a national recount. We had no issues with the other 9 regions. We had issues with the blatant attempt to rig the results of the Region 4 results. Yes. And people are just frustrated and tired. You know, people are demotivated, and especially our supporters out there who are feeling like, you know, this is what next is going to happen. Is it really going to be the APNU AFC that is going to assume office or anything of the sort and represent an illegal government?
Well, Guyanese, I want to impress upon you to be calm during this period. As I said before, it is heartening that both the PPPC and the coalition both have committed themselves to the recount. We must have the recount in the shortest possible time. The PPPC has proposed 10 days, and we strongly believe that it can be done in 10 days. But it is for the GCOM Secretariat to come up with a proposal different from the 156 days that they already proposed and take it to the commissioners and to the chair. And we hope that they can do this recount in the shortest possible time. They could come with a proposal for the recount in the shortest possible time. In the meantime, we are asking the people of Guyana to be calm, to be focused on the other threat, the COVID-19. Practice your social distancing, wear your mask. We did not wear a mask because of we are on television here, but as soon as we leave here, we will continue to wear our masks. Very important that you stay at home and be safe from COVID-19. Very important that you remain calm and stay away from any violent acts during this period. We want to give GCOM an opportunity to deliver on the recount. We are confident that we have won this election. We are confident that a transparent and credible recount process will vindicate us and our position that we have won this election, and we are supportive of this recount process. We hope that the opposition supporters, I appeal to you to remain calm too. And as I said before, once the process is transparent, once the process is credible, all of us are Guyanese and all of us must respect the outcome of the recount. Who win, win.
Yes, thank you, Brigadier, for coming on the program. And like Brigadier Phillips said, we're asking that the chair of GCOM does the right thing. You claim to be a woman of integrity. We're asking you to ensure that you do what is right. And we believe that what is right is for the Guyanese people to have their rightful government assume office in the shortest possible time. And we're going to proceed with the national recount. PPPC has said many times that we have absolutely no problem with recounting all of the 10 regions.
Exactly.
We have no problem because there's nothing to hide. We just want for credible and transparent results at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So that the people's will be respected and the rightful government assume office. So the chair of GCOM and all of GCOM Secretariat, we're asking you to do the right thing. The Guyanese people do not deserve to wait 156 days to have their government that they elected assume office until half a year later after having elections held. So Guyanese, stay calm. We believe that democracy will prevail. And like we always say, good will always overcome evil.
Exactly.
And there's absolutely nothing to fear. Continue to protect yourselves during this pandemic and stay safe. Thank you for tuning in. I am Vanelda Harris. Goodbye.
And thank you, Vanelda, for having me on this program, Democracy Under Threat.
Thank you. Bye.